You're listening to Season 1 of the iGEM podcast, Parkinson's Unscripted, brought to you by Synaxis. Hello, welcome to our first episode of the podcast. This is going to be sort of a verbal documentation of our project for the 2024 iGEM competition, but just because there's a lot of verbiage and stuff that might be unfamiliar to the general listener, this first episode is meant to be an introduction to who we are as a team, what our project is, and what exactly iGEM is. But I think that we can start with an introduction from my co-host here.
Hi, my name is Claire. I'm going into my third year of life sciences at Queen's. I'm one of the outreach co-leads for iGEM this year, and I'm currently living in Kingston for the summer, so I handle a little bit more of the in-person tasks for outreach.
Amazing, and I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Stephanie, and I'm going into my third year at Queen's in my undergraduate biochemistry degree, and like Claire, I'm an outreach co-lead. Specifically, I head the virtual team, even though I think we've kind of been more or less fairly combined this year. But I'll go ahead and let Claire describe who we actually are.
Thank you, Stephanie. So firstly, iGEM stands for the Queen's Genetically Engineered Machine Team. We have three sub-teams, the wet lab, dry lab, and human practices, which we call outreach, which is what me and Stephanie lead. And the wet lab deals with the biological functions, components, organisms that will be used, what experiments and reagents will be needed, the very heavy science stuff. And then the dry lab creates our computational models and designs our wiki website. And human practices, which again is us, we can be summed up from a nice quote from the director of judges, which is, human practices is the study of how your work affects the world and how the world affects your work, from Peter Carr, the director of judging. Looking into the past, we have mainly focused on bioremediation. Our 2023 project was called Recruit, which reduced PET plastic waste by transforming it into a bioplastic, which, after use, will be easier to degrade. This year, we are actually designing a therapeutic, which is exciting and kind of new for us.
I agree. Honestly, unabbreviated, our name is definitely a bit of a mouthful. But basically, every year we compete in the iGEM competition, which just stands for the International Genetically Engineered Machine Competition, one of, if not the largest synthetic biology conferences in the world. Each year, iGEM teams from around the world pick a field, or a village as they're called in iGEM, that represents a different field in which synthetic biology can be applied. And like Claire mentioned, historically our team has competed in the bioremediation village. And synthetic biology is a little bit of a niche field, but I think very, very useful.
And you may have actually never heard of synthetic biology, so a little bit of a description of it from the iGEM website itself might help explain things a little bit better. So synthetic biology is a rapidly growing field that applies engineering principles to biological systems, enabling the development of biotechnologies that work in harmony with nature and tackle global challenges. There are different types of villages, as we were talking about, within iGEM, and this year there are 15 villages, and some new creative ones this year are going to be the Fashion and Cosmetics Village, the Oncology Village, and the Infectious Disease Village. And again, our 2024 project is within the Therapeutics Village.
I actually didn't know that there were some new villages this year,
No,
but
super cool.
yeah, I'm so excited about like all the projects that are coming into that, especially fashion and cosmetics. I think that's like a huge thing that synthetic biology can be applied to, that I'm like just really excited to see all the creative projects that are coming. But I'm super excited about our project this year. Our project aims to lay the groundwork for a potentially revolutionary therapeutic for Parkinson's disease. We'll get more in depth about the science in our next episode, but I'll just briefly describe what we're planning on doing. Recent research has shown that the protein alpha-synuclein undergoes misfolding and aggregation that cause the neuronal dysfunction associated with Parkinson's disease. The gut origin hypothesis states that alpha-synuclein pathology originates in the enteric nervous system before spreading to the central nervous system via the vagus nerve. And this hypothesis is essentially the basis of our research. Our project, Synaxis, aims to cleave alpha-synuclein aggregates in the gut using a protease called neurosin, which theoretically should reduce the pathology of Parkinson's at its source in the enteric nervous system.
The iGEM competition encompasses a variety of fields and encourages innovation in all of those, but more importantly, it also forces us to think about these issues in our research in a very holistic way and demands that we think about the greater implications of our projects on the world, on specific groups of people and in their respective industries. To do this, the conference requires that we choose at least one human practice related award to aim for, after which the team comes up with initiatives related to the desired award. The conference encourages teams to be unique about their initiatives if they want to get gold, which we of course are aiming for. And obviously, we do want this. And this year, we are aiming for the Entrepreneurship Award and Integrated Human Practices Special Awards. And our Engineering Award is currently undecided, and as we're still in the early stages of our development.
Yeah, I feel like we've been pretty creative with our initiatives this year, or at least that they're very applicable and do actually aim to improve our project and, make us think about sort of the behind the scenes of drug or therapeutic developments. For one, we've been going ahead with an ethics handbook as part of our Integrated Human Practices Award. The handbook has been a labor of love that has forced us to consider what ethical ramifications are associated with the commercialization of medications in the pharmaceutical industry, as well as the research and medical ethics associated with testing medications and patenting, etc. We're trying to have it fully edited pretty soon, and then we have some volunteers who know a bit more about the topic to read it over and see if there's anything else that we need to consider while we develop our project. We're planning to sit down with a guest for one of our episodes to go over the philosophies and ethics in the handbook and how they apply to our project. But ethics aren't the only thing that we need to consider. Obviously, we do have advisors that help us with the science aspect of our project, but this is a treatment for patients. So obviously, we've had patient consultations to see what kinds of things need to be taken into account in terms of accessibility and comfortability. But patient consultations have kind of been your thing, Claire, if you want to kind of quickly talk about the people that you guys have already interviewed.
Yeah, so we are aiming to do some patient consultations. We're just going through the ethics board at Queen's just to ensure that we are following all ethical practices, but we have actually met with some patients who have Parkinson's disease that have been experts in our field. We've met with some doctors that have Parkinson's disease, and we've also interviewed a lot of Queen's professors and again local MDs who complete relevant work in the field, and they have been highly beneficial to the wet lab and honestly the overall progression of our project. They usually, in these early stages, are helping with the technical aspects of our product, but recently we've begun to meet with professionals in the business world to gain insights on creating a business strategy plan. Again, we are aiming for entrepreneurship, and we have met with people from Integrated DNA Technologies, which is called IDT, for some advice. And we have also been meeting with Parkinson's Canada, which is a very large organization dedicated to Parkinson's disease, and we are looking at ways to collaborate with them.
Yeah, I think going into this project at the beginning of the year, I didn't think there were so many things that we had to consider. But I am glad that we're considering the ethics and the business strategy if we decide to, keep going forward with this as like a startup, which is something that we've talked about before. And I'm really, really excited. I think it's a lot more interesting than considering just the scientific aspect. It's something that we don't usually do in our coursework. Um, but I'm glad that you brought up the business strategy plan. That's like our main focus at the time of this recording. We're starting the pre-seed stage and everybody kind of has something to do. And that being said, this is something that's going to be posted on our team wiki, available for a more in-depth read because we're planning to make quite the hefty doc. But everything that we talk about will be posted on our team wiki, which is more of an online documentation of our entire project timeline and initiatives, headed by our favorite and only Dry Lab lead Aiden, who I'm sure will make an appearance in the Dry Lab focused episode. But the wiki is a website that we design and populate ourselves to kind of just like brag about everything that we've had a chance to do over the summer. We plan to try and have a lot of accessibility features for people with Parkinson's, but I don't want to spoil too much in case we're overambitious, but we have a lot of really, really fantastic ideas that I'm excited to implement.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm really excited to see what comes with this project. And this podcast overall is really dedicated to exploring all the different angles of Parkinson's disease. We aim to educate the general public as well as the iGEM community truly about Parkinson's disease. And we'll be interviewing different people with connections to the disease. Some of these connections include researchers or patients who will provide the full picture of Parkinson's impact. In future podcast episodes, we will further discuss the project as well as feature an expert relevant to the topic of discussion. We have a lot more plans for initiatives and stuff for our project, so definitely stay tuned for future episodes to learn more.